In terms of James Hird, before I started acting for him in April 2013, I'd never met him. I had seen him play football, and for whatever it's worth, I'm not an Essendon supporter, I'm a Carlton supporter, which is very interesting in the light of the general rivalry between Carlton and Essendon. I'd followed the press and I got a sense that he was being scapegoated, but once I started acting for him, it was obvious to me he was being scapegoated. And he was basically heavily pursued by a lot of Age journalists and Patrick Smith from The Australian, who, and particularly The Age, kept on referring to him, and in some instances with one particular journalist, she keeps on referring to him as the architect of the scheme of what took place at Essendon. Compare that to what actually took place in the proceedings both before the Anti-Doping Tribunal and the Court of Arbitration for Sport, where it was asserted that James had suggested in terms of a program that it had to be WADA approved, AFL approved, and any supplements had to be approved by Bruce Reid. And the assertion that was made by the anti-doping authorities was that Stephen Dank ignored that. So he was what he was the architect of was what he put forward in January 2012. WADA approved, AFL approved, and approved by Bruce Reid. And yet the press kept on talking about him being, or some elements of the press, being the architect of what took place. It was just absolute rubbish. Having dealt with, I had 3 years of dealing with James and his wife, and they're, very good people, very decent people, very values-driven people. You can be decent and values-driven and make the occasional mistake, and he might say that in hindsight he would have done things differently at Essendon, but the way in which he's been demonised by the press and continues to be demonised by elements of the press is disgraceful.